Rotarians, it's with very great pleasure that I introduce you to my friend Tom Gump, aide to the Rotary International nominee Stephanie Urchick. Past District Governor for District 4950, Tom is also a past president of the Rotary Club of Adena Morningside in Minnesota, USA, with his wife, Catherine. They have a son, Andrew, who is an active interactor. So you can see they are truly a Rotary family. Tom is attending our multi-district pets today to talk about innovative ways of growing club membership. We are fortunate to have Tom speak to us today. He is extremely passionate about growing Rotary membership through forming new and innovative cause-based clubs. And he is a member of the Rotary International Growth Team for membership. Tom has been instrumental in forming and inspiring dozens of new and creative clubs around the world, including veterans, human trafficking, and refugee Rotary clubs. He is an example to us on how to be an amazing Rotarian. Rotary International Board of Directors have presented him with the prestigious Service Above Self Award for his work on membership. He now certainly practices service above self, inspiring others all around the world to be the best they can to increase membership and be better Rotarians. He is certainly someone I look up to. I first met Tom via Facebook when attending a Zoom membership meeting in the United States during the COVID pandemic. Isn't it wonderful that we have this opportunity to hear international speakers via the internet now? I was very honoured to have the opportunity to meet this great Rotarian and his lovely wife, Catherine, at the International Training Assembly in Orlando. When I asked Tom for his bio for this weekend, he said, "Mary, is there anything else you need?" I jokingly said, "How about your inside leg measurement?" By the way, it's 32. He's an extremely tall chap. I can't wait to hear Tom speak to you all this morning. One thing's for sure, he will be inspiring. We are all grateful to you, Tom, for getting up at 4:30 a.m. your time to be with us today. Rotarians, I give you Thomas A. Gump. Over to you, Tom.
Thank you so much, Mary, for that very kind and heartfelt introduction. And I am just so honored to be here with all of you today. You know, President-elects, this is it. This is your graduation, this pet's here. In 98 days from today, it'll be July 1st, and you'll be leading your clubs. And you know what? Next year, you will be the most important people in Rotary. You know, Mary mentioned that I work for RIPN Stephanie, Rotary International President nominee Stephanie. So I have a desk on the 18th floor of the headquarters, and I can tell you, Rotary doesn't happen on the headquarters, doesn't happen on the 18th floor of headquarters. It happens in our clubs. You'll be the ones making the changes in the clubs. You'll be the ones bringing the people in. You'll be the ones running those service projects, raising that money for the foundation. So let's everyone give a round of applause for our wonderful president-elects, because you're taking on a job. But you know what? It's going to be a fun job. It's going to be the best year in your Rotary career. I loved being president. You'll be so connected with each and every member of your club. They're going to call you when they get a job, or more importantly, when their kids get a job, when they have grandbabies, and when they have babies, it's just going to be wonderful. So I've been asked to talk about membership. So why membership? You know, there's so many things you have to do when you're a president. You have to appoint committee chairs, you have to review budgets, you have to lead meetings. But I remember as a Pets last year, it was in Philadelphia in the US, and my friend Bill Donnelly was a head of education. And he said, you know, you can set a dozen goals and you might be disappointed because you might not reach a dozen goals. But if you set a few goals, then you make those goals, you'll be happy. Well, I suggest to you that if you focus on membership, it's going to make your year as president wonderful. You know, we brought in 31 members into my club during my year as president. And every week it was great to see some smiling faces from friends I brought in and things like that. But we didn't only grow membership. What we did is we brought in more people, and that was more hands. So we did more service projects, both international and local, than we ever did before. We raised more money than we did before. We had 16 new Paul Harris Fellows. So if you focus on membership, it's going to get that wind behind your sails, and it's going to make your year easily. It's going to make it a lot easier. So I show this slide here because we're going to talk about innovative ways to grow your club. And like Christina said, our facilitator, Christina, we want you to be able to catch the fire. And like Jim said, we're going to try to make it fun. And like Rick said, we're going to try to change it up and make those changes. And you'll be the one leading the changes in your club. So we're going to start with just a quick background on our action plan. I don't ever want to use the word strategic plan because I don't want your eyes to glass over, because we're actually using this on the trustee level in their board of directors and in the board of directors of Rotary International. They're using this strategic plan. It's 4 priorities. This is my DG line. We have impact, reach, engage, and adapt. On your far left, that's Mariana. She was our DG last year. Lloyd is our current DG with reach. We have Julie, who's our DGE next year, and then me on the far right. And what's interesting about this is, and Phil reminded me this before we started, we're all at different heights. Mariana is actually standing on a chair. Julie's standing on a step stool to get all of this. So it's kind of like our DEI initiative at the same time. So we just want to quickly go through what the action plan says. Then we're going to talk about the 4 priorities. And then we're going to get into the real fun that Jim and his team wanted, which is we're going to talk about concrete things you could actually do in your club to help grow your club. So to begin with, let's just give a history of how we came up with our vision statement. So Rotary International, we have this vision statement. It's basically what we want to do to make the world a better place. So we sent out 1 million surveys. We had about 75,000 people respond, but then we went into focus groups where we actually had 400 people that we talked to. And this wasn't just Rotaractors and Rotarians. It wasn't just members. It was past members. It was people in our communities. Anyone that we had an email address for, we went out to. And you might have participated in this. This was the first survey a few years ago that actually had people. They had pictures of people and they said, who to you looks like a Rotarian? So anyways, across all zones, we had these focus groups, 28 countries were represented, and we came up with this statement. This, as presidents, is what we are trying to reach in Rotary. Together, we see a world where people unite to take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. So that's what we're trying to achieve. So how do we do it? There's 4 action plan priorities that help us reach that vision statement. Increase our impact, expand our reach, enhance participant engagement, and increase our ability to adapt. So quickly, we're just going to go through what these 4 are. Then we're going to talk about how you can use this in your club to actually grow your club, because we have to organize our approach. When you're a president, there's a lot to do. So this is going to help us focus. So the first strategic plan priority is increase our impact. You know, it's interesting because Rotary has this governance model where you're elected as president for a year, and then after you, another president will come. So in order for us to really have impact, and impact is basically when you go to Honduras and you build that well, you know, the outcome is you built a well, but the impact is you take the infant mortality rate from 85% down to a smaller percentage. That's the impact, is what we actually do. So this lady is planting mangrove trees. The trees are the outcome, but the impact is how clean the oxygen is, the rainforest that's being saved, that kind of thing. So we're going to talk about how do we increase our impact in everything we do, the programs we offer, and then we're going to talk about measuring it, and measuring in a way that communicates to the world the good that Rotary is doing. So it's not just the number of trees, it's how much oxygen is produced, things like that. The other thing we're going to do, and your area of the world knows this well, is we're going to expand our reach. We're going to grow in diversity of membership and participation. We're going to have new channels into Rotary. And you know, in Ireland and Great Britain and Rotary in Great Britain and Ireland, you're doing this. You have the hub, which is Microsoft Teams-based program where people can actually join Rotary, not by joining a club, but actually through joining the hub. Rotary International also has a program called Connect, where it's doing something similar. So we're going to talk about that. And what Phil represents for your area of the world is the Rotary appeal and building brand awareness. We want people to know about Rotary, not just know the name Rotary, but know what we actually stand for and what we do. The third thing we're going to do is we're going to enhance participant engagement. And I want you to focus on the word participant. You know, when they did this, you know, there was a committee, and Stephanie Ertrick was the head of the committee, and they had 3 trustees and they had 3 board of directors. They decided they weren't going to write this action plan. They were going to let the people of Rotary and the people who knew Rotary write it. So they didn't use the word Rotary member. They didn't use Rotarians. They didn't use Rotactors. They used participants. Why? Because participants is everyone that we reach out to. When you host that youth exchange student, we're hosting Ivo right now from the Czech Republic at my home. You know, he is a participant in Rotary. Everyone that we do a service project is a participant. Now, we're developing a participant-centered approach to deliver this value. Rotary International just reorganized. It took 19.5 million. I was in a finance committee meeting a couple of days ago. It took that amount of money and it took a bunch of the programs and put it under a new manager who is the head of the participant-centered approach, because they're going to focus on making things better for our members. You, the presidents and district governors and district governor-elects, all of you on the call, but also the members of our clubs. So we're going to talk about the different ways that we can enhance the experience for those participants. And lastly, the 4th strategic plan priority is increasing our ability to adapt. And as Mary Adams said, we're doing that right now. We have speakers from all around the world coming here to talk to you. Again, why? Because you're going to be the most important people in Rotary. We cannot do this from Rotary International. You have to be able to do it from your clubs. So we're going to talk about, you know, kind of like facilitator Jim said. He said, we have some clicks. We got to change it up. So this increasing our ability to adapt is basically saying, look at your governance, look at your structures, look at your meetings, look at your socials, see how you can change those up to see if you can make a change. And it doesn't have to be big change. You know, when we talk to president nominees during PETS, we always ask them, what do you want to know for your year as president? So we can plan next year's PETS to give you what you want. And so many times we get the same things. We want to increase membership. We want to be good public speakers, and we want to be able to make a change without alienating people. You know, I was at my own PETS in 2020. That was the last time we had an actual in-person PETS for the districts that I'm a part of. And I remember I wanted the president-elects like you to be fired up when you left, so that when you went home, you knew what you were going to do. And I asked everyone, what's the one change you're going to make? And everyone had great ideas. And one president named Troy, I call him Troy the pie guy, because his one change was he was worried about the dessert at his club. He wanted to have pie instead of what he considered not a good dessert that they were having then. So everyone laughed when he said, I wanted to, you know, have this pie. But I'll tell you, I ran into Troy a few years later and I asked him if he got his pie, and he said, yes, I got my pie. But a funny thing happened. Everyone started going to him with other suggestions, some big and some small, on how he can change his club. So they went from a club, and it's now the 2nd largest. This is a club inside my district. It's the 2nd largest club in our district now. And they went from a club not willing to change. So Rick, don't think you can't make that change, because you can make that change. He made that small change, then everyone started making other changes. He involved the president-elect and the president nominee, and that change still goes on today, but they changed from a club of being against change to being innovative. That's kind of what we're talking about here. So that's the background. Now the important part. What can you do in your clubs to actually bring this action plan to life so that you can grow your club? And why do you want to grow your club? Because you'll have more fun, like facilitator Jim said, because there'll be more smiling faces. You'll be more on fire, like Christina said, because we'll have more people doing more service projects and things like that. And we'll be changing things up, like facilitator Rick said. So let's talk about what you can do to increase your impact. Okay, so what you have to do if you're going to have a successful year as president, you have to have a plan. You have to come up with a strategy. Then you got to find out what your community wants. You know, you could do an assessment and find out what your club wants, because basically Rotary is a business like any other business, and we're delivering a product. And what is the product that you as presidents are delivering in your area of the world? It's the club experience. You know, the number one reason, this is what all the surveys have shown over the last 3 years, the number one reason people leave a Rotary club, and let's face it, they're not leaving Rotary International, they're leaving a Rotary club, and they're doing that because they're not satisfied with the club experience. So how do we get our experience in our clubs to be the best we can? We could do a simple survey, and we could also do a survey in the community to find out what they want. You know, in my district, for a number of years, we were bad about just writing a check or just doing a project in a community without asking them what they want. You know, I'm in Minneapolis, which is in the middle of North America, kind of near the Canadian border. And a few years ago, we wrote a check and we put in a library in a YMCA in downtown Minneapolis. Well, the clubs in that area came back to that club and said, that's not what we wanted. Thank you for the library, but it's not what we wanted. You have to find out what your community wants. You know, I live 8 miles from where George Floyd was murdered. And right after that, there were riots and we had buildings set on fire. We had $250 million worth of property damage. And this is when I was district governor. So I had to throw out my planned platform. This is the ability to adapt. My wife was going to talk about youth exchange. She threw out her platform. And what we did was we focused on how do we help our community that had just been literally burned to the ground in some areas. What we did is we brought in the Equity and Innovation Center out in North Carolina. That's kind of the southeast of our country. And we did a series of 12 facilitations where we found out, you know, where we were in our journey and what we need to do. So then at the end of that, we had 8 different clubs help 9 different businesses. And, you know, those businesses were getting money from the government to rebuild. But what we found out when we asked them, what do you need? They said, we need your help as business leaders. We need to know how to market. Some businesses wanted to know how to do accounting. Some wanted to know how to do promotion on the web. So what we found out is when we listened to them and we actually started going to their businesses, started eating at their restaurants. My club adopted a Postal Plus business where we mail packages out. We started inviting them to come to our galas. And we had an impact that we didn't have before when we went through all that. So the real thing we have to do is we have to focus on our efforts in order to make sure that we have impact. Maybe you partner up with other clubs. Don't ever think if you're a small club that you can't have great impact. You know, I have a club about 80 people, but my wife's club has about 250 people. So we do youth exchange together, where my club does most of the hosting and her club does most of the financing. And then make sure as president, you celebrate your successes along the way. So the second impact is expanding our reach. And I just want to give you 2 examples here. Expanding our reach is going out in the community, bringing more people into Rotary. And it's not just forming new clubs, and it's not just bringing members into your club. You know what my club did the December before last is we got together with 5 other clubs and we started a Rotary Community Corps. And it didn't cost us any money. What we did was we had a lot of refugees coming in, especially from Afghanistan. And what we did is we set up every other week at our community center, which is a free space, a meeting with those people. And it was interesting because we listened to them and found out what they needed. And it's not always what you think. Of course, we had Rotarians there who were offering to give jobs, and many of them got hired. We had the mayor there and the school superintendent, all the people who are Rotarians already in our clubs. Rotary is really good at connecting people. But we also found out things that they needed that we would have never expected. They needed access to the internet. So luckily I had a librarian who I brought into my club, and she came and she signed people up for library cards so they can get internet. We heard that one of their biggest issues were they couldn't get jobs because they couldn't drive, and they couldn't drive because the driver's manual wasn't translated into Pashtun and Dari, and Google Translate didn't do that. So luckily, a member I brought into my club who had just joined and was looking to serve but didn't know how, he worked for a hedge fund, and they had software that could translate that. So then we started hearing those success stories of people getting jobs. That didn't cost us any money. And I tell you, what it did do is we had in these 5 clubs, as every club has, you have your people who are doing the work. You have some of the people who are coming to the meetings, but you have those people who you're worried about because they don't come to the socials, they don't come to the meetings. Well, when we started serving these Afghans, some of them got really active in this, and they started having fun. Again, what facilitator Jim was saying, and then they started coming back and they started getting more engaged. So it not only expands our reach, but it makes people be passionate about our club. Nobody joins a Rotary Club to do nothing. They want to do something. And then we have to share those stories. As Phil Dwyer will tell you, you have 2 jobs as president. It's not only doing the job, but you have to tell people about the job. You got to promote what you're doing. Then the third, what we need to do in our clubs is we need to enhance participant engagement. So again, we are delivering value to our members, but we have to know what value we're delivering to them. People join for different reasons. And it's hard to communicate to people everything that Rotary is because we do so many things. I was on a membership call yesterday at Rotary International, and people were talking about, well, we got to make sure we do the mentoring, and we got to make sure we do this. And there was a whole checklist of different areas and all the value that we deliver, the Learning Center and all that. But Rotary is the power of and. We could do this and we could do that. We could build those wells in Honduras and Guatemala, and we can host the youth exchange student, and we can do these other things. So find out what your participants want and give them what they want. And then we have to tell people what we're doing. The last thing we have to do is we have to increase our ability to adapt. So often, my wife's club, they have a big gala every year, and they do a great job at it. They raise $100,000 for local projects, and they spend it that year. But almost every year, the incoming president of that club, she or he comes to me and says, well, I'm worried that the gala is going to be a failure because every year the numbers are going down a little bit, right? And so I said, well, you should start something new. Maybe bring in food trucks. Maybe just try something new, but they're always afraid to do it. Go ahead, don't be afraid. You're not going to destroy Rotary in 1 year. But if we don't look at what we're doing and we don't change things up, we may lose money. Now they make money, but a lot of it is because of corporate sponsors where their Rotarians own businesses and they're giving that. Don't be afraid to change. It's the same way in my club. We have a golf tournament every year. And in Minnesota, we have such a long winter that everyone plays a lot of golf in spring and summer. So a lot of nonprofits are competing for that time. And again, we have a few people working on the tournament, and they come to me and say, Tom, what can we do differently? Because we're afraid we're going to lose money in the golf tournament. I say, well, do something that everyone could participate in. Maybe try a car raffle where everyone's given 5 tickets and they could sell it. They'll sell those tickets or they can buy it themselves. But we have to get we have to look at everything we're doing and see if we can change it up. I have a friend, Stephanie, who I'm working for the next 2.5 years because she's going to be president. And in her club, what she did is she started an impact club as a satellite club. So they don't have meetings. They just meet twice a month and do service projects. And there's a smaller board that does the governance. So if you find that there's too much heavy weight on the governance or there's too many meetings, maybe see how you can do that, how to simplify it so people can get more involved. And the other thing I'd recommend to you as president, it's going to be a quick year. It's going to be wonderful. You're going to love it. But the year will be up before you know it. Make sure that you're bringing your next president-elect and your president nominee in because you're going to be making great changes. Remember Troy, he's still having his pie because he brought in his president-elect and his president nominee. make sure that you bring in those influencers and you make change. If someone feels like they're being alienated or they're losing their job or losing position, nurture those people. So there's lots of places to get help. You have your assistant governors, you have your DG line to help you out. There's great courses in the Learning Center. And so now, if we have time, I'd like to take your questions because I want you to leave with the knowledge you came seeking. And this is always my favorite part, to hear your questions and answer them. So thank you for letting me be here with you. Thank you so much. Mary, I'm getting better at lip reading, but I'm not perfect yet.
Right, okay.
I don't think I was meant to be coming in, so I'm spotlighted. That was absolutely fabulous. And let's hand over to Chris now for any questions anybody may have.
Thank you very much, Mary, and thank you, Tom. I've got a question here from Stuart Gilbert, who is a DG. He says, thank you so much, Tom. You're absolutely right about celebrating success. Please, can you give some examples of how you celebrate success in your club? And also, I think you also mentioned about how you reward people as well within your clubs. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, DG Stewart, for that question. And it is so important. Our members are volunteers, and you need to recognize them. One of the best things you could do is celebrate those successes, and there's lots of ways to do it. Now, you don't have to do it the way I do it. Sometimes my wife thinks I go overboard when I was president, but, anything you do, they're going to appreciate. After we had a successful celebration of whatever we've done, you can put up streamers at the club. You could put up balloons at the club. You could put up a foam car board listing the volunteers who participated. You could do handwritten notes. You could post it on your social media. What I used to do is I used to go to the dollar store, and you can buy these, whatever time of year it is. If it's St. Patrick's Day, you can buy a little centerpiece for $1 of a shamrock. And I would cut out from the hand directories. I know some people like to go virtual, but my club, when I surveyed, they like to have a handwritten directory. I cut out their pictures and laminated them and put little pictures of all those who volunteered and put them in the center of the tables. But the most important thing is just to say, we did it, thank you. And one of the easiest ways is to stand out in front of that hotel, stand out in front of the country club, just smile and shake those people's hands. I did that before every meeting when I was president. And I didn't expect to do it the whole year, but a friend of mine said, well, you're never going to do it when it's cold and snowing outside. Then I was challenged, so I ended up doing it for the whole year. But people really appreciate it. So, and it could be as simple as, I'm in a traditional club, so we do a bunch of service projects, but even picking up trash alongside of the highway, what we would do after is we would go out and eat somewhere at a breakfast place. We'd wash our hands, of course, but buying them a t-shirt, buying them a hat, there's so many different ways to celebrate. But whatever works for you, you should do it. It'll pay dividends. You'll retain those members. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Tom. I have another one here from Angela in Cardiff Bay. I mentioned in the breakout how we should look differently at the word professional in relation to membership. I think it's a barrier to recruitment. Everyone is a professional at what they do.
Well, thank you so much for that question. I tried to join Rotary in 1996. I was an assistant district attorney in my small town in Georgia. And they would not let me join because my boss, she had the law enforcement classification. So it was 17 years later that I joined Rotary. And the reason I did is because my next door neighbor, who I work out at the gym 3 times a week, he asked me and this is a good lesson for me, he asked me 24 times to go. But I was so hurt at not being able to join 17 years earlier, I almost not joined. Just think how much free work they would have gotten out of me for 17 years. But so I agree with you. We are all professionals. We need people. Sometimes when I talk about creating new clubs, people say, oh, so we don't need our traditional clubs. No, we need everyone. You know, I'm not one of these. Of course, we need young people. They're our future. Of course, we need rotor actors, but we need retired people who have, you know, resources and have time to do things and have experience that they can share. It's not all about money. We have so many smart people out there. So what we need to do is we need to reach out to all the professionals, no matter what they do. If there's a homemaker, you know, eventually our son's going to university. He's got one more year in high school, then he goes to university. So we're going to have more time to do more Rotary. So I agree with you. We need everybody. Thank you very much for the question.
Thank you, Tom. Another question, which is from Robin Brown. What advice would you give a traditional, expensive, old club that has come to the conclusion they cannot recruit new members anymore? And I wonder if I could link that into a question about Impact Club.
Mm-hmm. You know, that's an excellent question. You know, we've been around as an organization, Rotary International, for 118 years. And the reason we have been is because we've been able to adapt. I'm in a traditional club, so I have felt that pain. You know, we had a large discussion yesterday in a subcommittee of Rotary International, and we had a woman from Africa, a woman from Japan, a man from India, and the question was, it's so expensive. What is the expense in Rotary? Well, even with the dues increase from Rotary International, that's $75 a year, but so many of our potential Rotarians and people of action out there that we could bring into Rotary are priced out, because I know my club had a fee increase this year, my wife's club, and it's $1,000, over $1,000 for each of us in our community to join Rotary. But most of that is that fixed cost meal. What you can do as a traditional club is you can start a satellite club. We did this last year with our Monticello club because they had 8 school teachers and they couldn't attend a noon meeting at a hotel because they were teaching. So now they meet at night at the same hotel, and they have a great time, but it's much cheaper because the hotel doesn't charge them a fixed cost. They just bring in pizza, they use the community room or subs, and they just talk. So what you can do is you can start up a satellite club that meets at a different time. This works very well with young professionals too, who can't really afford to take time out of their job, or, you know, maybe they're a publicly traded company and can't leave during the day, or they're managers and can't leave, but they can meet at night and they could decide whether or not they want to order a drink or food. So thank you very much for the question, but I say, give them the flexibility. You'll bring in more people and you'll retain more people. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. I'm going to combine another 2 questions here, if I may, from Simon and from Totnes, and Kate from Chippenham. Thank you, Tom, for a great presentation. How would you undertake a community assessment? And the linking to this, I'm going to ask is that maybe partly due to the changing needs of the younger generations, is the US experiencing similar changing needs? Does Tom have ideas on how we can adapt to become more attractive to the younger generations?
Absolutely. And those are 2, Chris, you're doing a great job in combining these questions. Again, people, especially after COVID, they're weighing their options. They want to see, is my time, are my dollars or pounds being spent well? So they're looking at Rotary saying, is this a good option? So it's important to find out what people want. In our clubs, we need to do this. In our communities, we need to do this. It's really simple. If you have a small club, you can just pick up a phone, call people. Community assessment could be as simple as asking the people, your neighbors, what they would like in a club, asking the people you worship with or work out with, your friends, your family, what would make them join Rotary? You know, I am convinced if they would get to your clubs, they would join Rotary. But to keep them, we have to make sure that we're delivering what they want. The question about young people, that gets asked a lot. You know, how do we get young people in? Well, it's one thing to get them in, but you also have to keep them. And it's pretty simple. You ask them, what do they want in a club? And if you're bringing a young person in and you don't have any young people in your club, maybe think about bringing 2 or 3 at a time. Ask them to join, bring their friend along with them when they join. And then what you can do is you can assign them a class project to do, those 2 or 3 young people, but make sure it's their decision what they want to do. Because they might, when we are feeding the homeless or we're doing whatever we do, they might want to collect goods to give to a domestic violence shelter. So let them do what they want to do, bring them in groups, and just ask them what they want and give them what they want. They could be a satellite club of young people off of your club. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. And I think this is almost leading into the next question I have, which is from Ian Hughes. How can you enable and encourage diversity?
Well, that's a very good question. But first, I'd like to say why we want diversity. Remember what I said about people are leaving because they're not happy with the club experience. You know, we talk about D, E, and I, diversity, equity, inclusion, but we don't often talk about the B, which is belonging. People have to feel like they belong in the club. What does that mean? That means that they have to feel that if they bring up a suggestion, you're going to listen to it, at least listen to it. You don't have to actually implement it, but you have to listen to it. When people feel like they belong, they'll stay. They'll love your club. They'll bring in other people. But if they don't feel like they belong, then they're going to leave. And I really appreciate Rick and his group saying there's cliques. I've been to clubs where you go in and this group shows their affection for one another by making derogatory comments towards the other. And it seems to feed into each other. Like when you're sitting there, you're almost thinking, I have to think of the next negative thing I'm going to say about somebody. And I just don't want to be a part of that. And if someone's coming in, you're thinking, do I really want to be a part of that? And how many years is it going to take me to fit into that group? We can't be like that. We have to be welcoming. We have to be smiling. And I would say, you know, getting rid of those cliques is helpful. And you can do it. Sometimes what I would do when I was president, I'd give out cards. And then I'd put a big card and a stanchion in the middle of the table. And if you had the king of diamonds, you'd have to sit at the table with diamonds, you know, that kind of thing. Now, some people say, some club presidents say, oh, that'll never work. I can't get my people to change. Well, then take the new people, put their beautiful picture inside a little frame and move that around to the tables. But when you start mixing it up, everyone will start getting different tables at different times. So yeah, that's what we have to do. We have to encourage diversity. We have to encourage belonging, and we have to make people feel welcome. If they feel welcome, more diversity will join.
Thank you, Tom. I'm going to combine a couple of questions here as well. So from Peter Hamilton and Rick Cadnam. How should we recruit club members or Rotarians? And and how does Rotary become more understandable to non-participants? So I'll do that again. So should we recruit club members or Rotarians? And how does Rotary become more understandable to non-participants?
Very good questions. Yes, we should recruit people. You know, if we're going to have impact in the world, we need more people to do more service projects, do more good in the world. There's only 3 ways to grow Rotary. We recruit people, we retain them, or we start new clubs. It's important that when we recruit people, we let them know what Rotary is about. You know, I said people leave a Rotary club. There's so many wonderful things in Rotary. I mean, we have a council on legislation. I'm an attorney, so I love the council legislation thing. We have an international assembly. You could be a paid observer at either one of those. We have an international convention. We have zone institutes. In my country, you can go work on the Rose Bowl parade float in Pasadena and have 30 million people watch your float go down the road. There's all these things to do, but people never find out about those things because they only find out what we tell them in the clubs. You know, different parts of the world, I'm thinking about the Philippines right now, they do such a good job in having district-wide new member orientations. You know, when I was recruiting all the people when I was president, a PDG came up to me and said, well, that's great that you're recruiting these people. Do you have a new member orientation? I said, well, no, we don't. Well, it's important to have that new member orientation. And it's important that we're just not talking at those people. We're talking to those people and getting their feedback. Somebody who's new to Rotary may not have done Rotary Youth Exchange, but maybe they've done it with another organization. They have ideas on how we can do that better. So the Philippines, they gather all their new members from all their clubs and their new clubs within their districts, and they have a district-wide orientation where they give them the broader perspective on Rotary. So if someone's not happy with a club, they know that there's another club they can fit it well into. We have a lot of different cultures. Every club's got a new culture. And the reason I keep bringing up the survey is because your club changes every year, right? Because new people are coming in, other people are leaving or dying. So what you need to do is find out what your club culture is right now and try to get people to fit in with that culture. And if they don't fit in, let them know that there's someplace else, another club. And I know you as presidents want to grow your club. And it might be hard to say, if you don't like this club and they're leaving, you try another club. But the important thing about the survey is don't wait. Most clubs don't do surveys, but when they do, they usually do exit interviews. Well, that's kind of late to do it because you can't make a change to keep that person. And Rotarians are all wonderful people, so they might not be telling you the truth of why they're leaving because they don't want to hurt your feelings. So do the survey right when you get in. And then you as president will get positive feedback because people will know that you're listening to them, especially if you can make one of the changes that they make. And if you have a problem as a president, last year a president called me from my district saying that half the people in his club wanted to do away with the 4-way test. It was about a 22-person club. And half the people wanted to keep the 4-way test. So he said, what do I do? And so I said, do a survey and then call me back. He did a survey. Out of the 22, only 2 people said they wanted to do away with the 4-way test. But he was able to go back to the club, and the people who wanted to do away with the 4-way test, they thought they were listened to because he was addressing the issue. And he was able to go back and say, I listened to you. The majority of people want to do this. So it's a tool that you have as a president that you should use. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I've got one question here that from Alf, who is asking us about to tell him more about the hub and people who are not members of clubs. So Alf, I don't think we can ask for this to happen now, but that certainly is part of the membership rollout for the next little while. So I couldn't ask you to do that one, Tom, I don't think. The other thing that people have been asking about is you talked about setting goals and to collaborate with new groups in the community. How would you set about doing that?
So it's important to set realistic goals, and it's important. We were talking about celebrating along the way. I really think it's important to set a membership goal. Before I was president of my club, I was on the board for a number of years, and you know how the board meetings go. You review the minutes from the last meeting, you review the financials, you talk about the next social, the next meeting, but we never talk about membership. When you set your goals, if your goal is to grow by a positive 3 or 4 people, go ahead and put that as the #1 item on your agenda. Don't push it off. Membership's important because it's going to help you reach all your other goals. They have a presidential citation. And when I was president, it used to be you have to fill in these categories. Now you could kind of pick your own since President Holger. But I had a huge foam core board. And every other week I'd go in and I'd circle the goals that we met. And when we were in Foundation Month, I ordered a huge thermometer from a company called Fathead. Those big, you could send in a picture and you can have a huge face of somebody at a sporting event. They also make those thermometers. And I would color in for everybody, every week during Foundation Month of how we were getting. So you need to set the goals. But if you want to be a really good leader as a president, bring your whole club on you with your journey. This is not something you have to do on your own. I hired an intern and we didn't have to pay them. There's a lady in my club who owned human resources company, and she put up notices at the colleges. I got a nice MBA student. She would do my PowerPoints for me. You can get all kinds of people to help you. We don't want you to burn out as president. So what I'm saying is, they're all your friends. They're your Rotary family. Bring them along on your journey. You don't have to do this yourself. Tell them you need help bringing in people. When I started bringing in my friends into my club, after a few weeks, my club members would come up to me and say, Tom, I'm bringing my friend tomorrow. Hey, Tom, I'm bringing my sister tomorrow. You know, they get excited if you get excited. So let them know that you're going to grow with their help. You're going to raise money with their help. You're going to do service projects with their help. They will follow you if they're on the journey with you, because it's making their club great too. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Tom. I think one final question. I keep saying one final question because you keep opening all sorts of other ideas to people. But one of the things that you've mentioned as well is find out what your members want. How do you find the best way of doing that? Okay,
it depends on your club. But the Rotary International, if you go to My Rotary and you type in Club Health Check, that's a survey. We call them assessment tools in Rotary. It's a survey you can do with your board of directors. If you want to survey your members, type in member satisfaction survey. But the most important thing is that you're asking them. If you have a club of 15 people, you could just pick up the phone and say, what do you like? You know, and what you're trying to find out is, do you like where we meet? Do you like when we meet? Do you like our socials? Do you like our service projects? If you just get the answers to those 5 questions, you'll be fine. You know, so many times when people pull up an assessment tool from Rotary, they say, this is too legalese, this is too Rotaryese. We had a question about how do you explain Rotary? We can get those questions, we can get them simple. You can take, and maybe Phil can help you with this, but you can take, not that I'm giving you more work to do, Phil, but you could take one of the surveys from Rotary, and what you can do is you could put it into SurveyMonkey and you can make it simple. Now, I was talking about, if you have 20 members, you just pick up the phone, call them. If you have 400 members in your club, then you'll want to do that survey, and you'll want to do it once a year. That's what Rotary recommends. But when you get those, you need to act on them. So if there are 8 people in that 400-person club who don't like getting up at 6:30 in the morning to make a 7:30 meeting, then start up a satellite club. It's easy to do, and let them meet at lunch. But it could be as simple as, we had this mayor in the 70s in New York City, in my country, Ed Koch, and he'd always walk around saying, how am I doing? How am I doing? You can do that. Before I became president, 6 months before, I ranked all the people in my club from grumpiest to happiest. And I started taking them out to lunch or coffee, starting with the grumpiest. And the grumpiest, he was late 70s, and he was still working. And I asked him in a nice way, why are you so grumpy? And what he said was, well, when I started Rotary many years ago, we used to be able to have our classification talks, and we used to be able to tell people what we did for a living. I want people in my club to know I'm a realtor so I can sell houses. So in my first club meeting, I asked him to do, we had too many people. When the club was smaller, we can have long classifications. So I instituted something called 5 Fun Facts, where you tell 5 fun facts about yourself. Because some people, you know, we talked about some people being professionals as homemakers as opposed to the job. They might want to talk about, I have this many kids, I have this dog, and I like to woodwork. But that gentleman named Mark got to talk, and he was happy ever since then. That was my form of a survey. It doesn't have to be complicated, but you have to ask. And again, your club is changing, so you have to do it once a year. So that would be my answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tom. I think you've left us with some lovely pictures there. And I love the idea of the 5 fun facts. I think showing dedication to your Rotary, getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to actually give us this presentation is beyond that. So thank you very much indeed. I'm not going to carry on thanking you, because I'm going to ask Anne if she will do that on behalf of everybody here.
Thank you, Chris.
Good morning, Tom. Thank you very much for giving up your valuable time at an early hour for you, and for such an inspirational talk on membership and going Rotary. I'm so delighted that your talk has been recorded, full of ideas, tips for attracting and retaining members that we can refer back to. As a former teacher, I normally make notes. I couldn't make notes on everything you've said, so it's great that we can refer back to it. Also, some great questions from our president-elects and excellent answers. Again, inspirational, and I couldn't write them all down. It certainly is clear that we need to work together to grow Rotary. The president-elects here this morning must realise that they will receive help and support in order to succeed in growing Rotary in whatever way possible. For example, within their own club, attracting new members, forming new cause-based clubs, Rotaract or satellite clubs. There's plenty of opportunities, as we've already heard. So thank you, Tom, for sharing your passion with us to grow membership, and do enjoy the rest of your day. I think you deserve it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
President-elects, you now have some work to do. You're going into your next breakout room for a discussion on attracting new members. So thank you, Wendy, for organising the breakout rooms like magic. Enjoy.